Okay, anyway, let's go Parshas Vayiera. I just want to make an observation due to limitations on time. We can't go into all of the texts. One of the things we do know is that there does seem to be a very important sort of evolution in the life of Avraham. And this is really what I want to point out to you, is that Avraham becomes far more sophisticated in Parshas Vayiera in his understanding of Hashem and Hashem's ways than when he was first initiated in last week's Parsha, in Parshas Lech Lecha. I hope to be able to demonstrate that in just a moment. First of all, you see this when Hashem is about to destroy the city of Sodom, or the cities of Sodom, the city-states of Sodom, where Hashem says, how can I hide from Avraham that which I am about to do? Vayomer, Hashem Amar, Amechaseh ani me Avraham asher ani oseh. How can I hide from Avraham? The Avraham, hayo yihiyeh legoy gadol v'yatzum. He, after all, will become a great nation, and he needs to know how to pass on a tradition to his children of the ways of God, of God's righteousness. So it's really only here in this parsha that Hashem starts to become concerned about the legacy that Avraham is passing on. And in order for Avraham to pass on a faithful legacy about God, he needs to have a certain level of sophistication to understand why Hashem sometimes brings retribution on some kinds of people and he allows others to live with impunity. And therefore I need to explain to him why I'm about to destroy the city of Sodom. And then Avraham, of course, approaches Hashem, which is the next few psukim in this story. And Avraham has this disputation with God, something that he has not had yet before in the past. It's the first time we find Avraham actually challenging Hashem is what starts to take place in this week's parsha. And it says that Avraham says to Hashem in source number 2, Ha'af tispet tzadikim rasha. God, how can you possibly wipe out the righteous together with the wicked? Maybe you can find some righteous people in Sodom. And like Pasuk Chafei says, Chalila lecha me'asot kadavar hazeh. God, heaven forbid that you should do something like this, to destroy to kill the righteous and the wicked alike. Chalila lach hashofet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat. How profane it would be for you, O Hashem, to not do justice. Just a few episodes later, after Hashem reassures Avraham that there are an insufficient number of righteous to save the cities of Sodom, Hashem then destroys the cities of Sodom. He offers sanctuary to Lot and his family. And then the very next episode, right after that, is a sort of a rerun from last week's parsha. Just the characters have changed. It's almost like a script rewrite. What happened in last week's parsha? Avraham had to go down to Egypt, and he's worried that Sarah is a beautiful woman, and he tells everyone, she's my sister. And he tells Sarah, tell everyone that you're my sister. And that's what happens. Now the story over there is that, very similar to the story over here, is that Hashem afflicts Paro, who takes Sarah to become his wedded wife, because she's a married woman. And Paro realizes this, and he releases Avraham, and they go on their merry way. In our episode in Parshas Vayiera, we have a very similar story. But instead of the pasuk just saying, like it says in source number 4 by Paro, Vayinaga Hashem excuse me, et Paro negaim gedolim bet beito, that Hashem afflicts Paro without any forewarning. In this week's parsha, Hashem comes to Avimelech in a dream. He says to him, this is in source number 3, Vayabo Elokim al Avimelech b'chalom halayla, Vayomer lo himechamet al ha'isha shelakachta v'hi b'ulat Baal. You are hereby going to die for this woman that you have taken into your home because she's a married woman. But Avimelech at this point had not touched her at all. And like this pasuk Dalet says, Avimelech lo karav eleh. He had nothing to do with her yet. He just brought her in as a lady in waiting. And therefore, in his dream, he starts arguing with Hashem. Vayomar, Hashem, Hagoy gam tzadik taharok. How can you kill the righteous together with the wicked? Does that sound familiar to you? Is this not the same argument that Abraham was making with God to help the people of Sodom? And it also becomes this kind of theological debate with God, that this time Avimelech is having with God in his dream. It's not my fault. He said that she's his sister. How could I be blamed for doing something so innocent? So Hashem tells him in Pasuk Vav, Gam anochi yadati ki betom levavecha asita zot. I know that you've been acting somewhat innocently, and therefore I've prevented you from doing anything further. And therefore, ve'ata hashev eshet ha'ish kinavihu v'yitpalel ba'adcha v'chyeh. So I want you to return Sarah to her husband. He'll daven for you, and you will leave. But if you will live. But if you don't return her, you and your whole household will die, will perish. So why does the Torah have to repeat this story? If it already happened with Paro, like what is the additional lesson? I'm sure there are many episodes in the life of Avraham and Sarah that we are not exposed to in Sefer Bereshith. So why is it that this episode is repeated if there's nothing additional to learn? It seems like a repeat of the same story, just with different people. And it seems to me that there's a very different kind of thing that's going on over here. In the case of Paro, God does not enter into dialogue with Paro before afflicting him. God afflicts him. Paro learns not to do what he did, learns his lesson, gives back Sarah, and everyone lives happily ever after. And Abraham gets to take some nice parting gifts with him. Over here, Avimelech is about to be afflicted. Hashem warns him, and he says, if you give her back, and Abraham will daven for you, and everything will be well. So that's the additional facet of the story, and that's why I think it's so important. Just one other thing that we need to see before we get the total picture, and that is, within that episode of the destruction of Sodom, we have a very, very telling story, like a sub-narrative of what happened to Lot, what his fate was. And we know that Lot turns to the angels and says, I know that you're offering to give me sanctuary. They said to him, where do you want to go? So he says, here's what I'd like to do. He says, do me a favor. Ve'anochi lo uchali himaleit hahara. He says, I don't want to go to the mountainous region to escape from Sodom. Pen tidbakani hara'a vamati. It's in source number 5. Lest evil catch up with me and I will die. Now, the pasuk doesn't tell us what Lot was scared of encountering if he would have fled towards the mountain. He instead tells them, let me go to a little place called Mitzar, and I'll be okay there. And that's where the whole episode with his daughters takes place. But the point is, what was he so scared of fleeing to the mountains? You could explain on the simple shot that he was all by himself, and he was worried about the peril of travel with his defenseless daughters and himself, and that's what he was worried about. But Rashi tells us something more over here, and this is really the crux of the matter that we need to get to. Rashi says in source number 6, Keshahayiti etzel anshe Sodom. Lot says to the angels, he says, you know what, guys, when I was living in Sodom, Haya HaKadosh Baruch Hu ro'eh ma'asai u'ma'asei b'nei ha'ir, ve'hayiti nir'et tzadik. When I was living in Sodom, by comparison to them, I was a groise tzaddik, and I was worthy, therefore, of being saved. He says, avo etzel tzaddik, ani kirasha. But if you're going to send me to live back where Avraham lives, in the mountains, it's not going to be good for me, because by comparison to him, I'm going to be a rasha. And I'm going to then deserve to die all over again. V'chein amra hatzarafit le'Eliyahu ki bat elai lahazkir et oni et avoni ad shelo bata etzli haya kadosh baruch hu ro'eh ma'asai u'ma'asei ami v'ani tzadeket b'neihem. That she blamed, in a sense, Eliyahu for the tragedy of her son dying. She said to him, like, before you came here, by comparison to my countrymen, I was a pretty good person. But once you came, but now that you've come in our midst, compared to you, I'm a bad person. So I want you to consider for a moment the the angst and the dilemma that Avram is currently experiencing based on what we learned from Lot. Now, why is Rashi telling us Lot's dilemma? What are we supposed to learn from that? What we're supposed to learn from that is that it's not always beneficial to be a tzaddik. It may be great for you, but it may be terrible for all the people that are around you. And this was the problem that I think that Avram was having. You know, it's one thing to say to Avram, I've chosen you, you're going to be the chosen people. V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama, everyone will be blessed through you. But if anything, Avram, in the last few episodes, has seen just the opposite. That wherever I go, people are not getting blessed through me, they're being destroyed. In other words, why are you wiping out the people of Sodom? I think part of it has to do with the fact that I'm living right next door. And my righteousness compared to them is causing them to be wiped out. And not only that, it's not just by comparison to them. The fact that they refuse to heed my lesson is in itself part of the concern that Avram has, is that when I spread the divine word and I get people to become religious and I get people to become elevated and spiritual and closer to God, that's wonderful. But when that doesn't happen, guess what? They're much worse off because I tried to be Makarev them, they didn't listen, and now God's going to destroy them. So I think that the story with Avimelech, you know, this is also the concern. Avimelech comes and takes Sarah, the beautiful Sarah, the holy Sarah, and all of a sudden, Avram is worried the same thing that happened to Par is going to happen to Avimelech. And Hashem says, no, this is going to be an example of where you can actually elevate and create light and greatness and beauty as a result of the encounter with the other that you're going to have. Yes, there are going to be conflicts, there are going to be mess-ups, it's not going to be always be pretty when you have encounters with the outside world who have different cultural values and things like that. But what did Hashem tell Avimelech? V'yitpalel ba'adcha v'chiyeh. Avram will daven for you and you'll survive and you'll live and you'll prosper, even though he's living there with you and he makes you look bad. But when a tzaddik is with you, he can have a positive effect upon you as well. And it was as much of a reassurance to Avimelech as it was to Avram. It was a reassurance to Avram. Avram, look at the positive effect that you can have on the people around you. And that is such an important lesson that Avram Avinu needs to learn, is that righteousness, when it's used properly, can be such a powerful tool of positive influence, of providing goodness to people, even when they don't necessarily adhere to the same value system that you do. Even when you're among the Philistines, just praying for them and helping them in some way creates that Kiddush Hashem, even though they're going to remain Philistines well afterwards. And we know that's the reason why the whole aftermath of this whole story is, we read it every Rosh Hashanah, that Avimelech wants to make a covenant, wants to make a pact with Avraham, because he realizes, look, even though I'm never going to be a Jew, I'm always going to be a Philistine, that's just who we are, but I still feel that there's something beneficial that we can draw from you. And I think that's a very important lesson for all of us, is that, let's not make the mistake of thinking that we should separate ourselves from the rest of the world because there's no benefit that we can have on them. If anything, either we'll be harmed or they'll be harmed in the process through the contrast. It's not true. It's not true. That can sometimes happen if we make a concerted effort to be a positive effect, and the world rejects us and doesn't listen to us, then of course Hashem will ultimately have to bring retribution on those who refuse to learn. But that's not our primary objective. Our primary objective should be to do good in the world, to be a positive force of influence, to pray for others, to do kindness for others, even when they're going to remain Philistines in the end. Because at the end of the day, even if we can't completely convert them to our team, but we can still have a very, very profound and positive effect on the rest of the world. And that was one of the most important lessons that Avram needed to know, especially in light of the fact that he had all of these questions about why God are you presenting such suffering and punishment to the world, right? And Hashem explained to him, there are bad people that need to be eradicated from the world so that the world can be brought up and become a better place. You, Avram, have a role to play, not just in rooting out the bad, but in also in contributing to the light and beauty and converting the darkness to light. Let's think about that. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.